Section 3, Lecture 10. I explained the different aspects of security in blockchain and the top investors in blockchain. In Lecture 11, I will now explain benefits, challenges, and standards pertaining to blockchain. So, whenever an organization thinks of adopting a blockchain, it will first find out why should it adopt a blockchain. So, well, if it puts up all the data on the blockchain, there will be many benefits. So here we have categorized the list of benefits into direct benefits, additional benefits, and the cost benefits overall. So let's look at each of these one by one. So in terms of the direct benefits which are accrued after deploying or adopting blockchain, the first one is it is efficient. There is immediate distribution of data across the departments and everybody will have the transaction available on the blockchain. Data is secure. Transactions are secure because they use cryptography. Transactions are reliable. There is reduction in fraud. Entries are time-stamped. And the information or the transactions are shared and available on an immutable ledger across the network. Now since they are available across the network, it can never be overwritten or cannot be forged. So frauds can be reduced. There is an immutability of records because it is only append-only data. Once the transaction is agreed upon and validated by everybody, only then it is added to the block and then to the blockchain. So records are immutable and there is no single point of failure. So you can have a collaboration possibilities, like there could be partnership, but you will never have a single point of failure. Then in the ecosystem, management and governance becomes easier because if you want to have some information shared across departments, you need not have the individual copies to be put in, but with the blockchain, the final data is available across all the peers, which can be designated in the system. So apart from these direct benefits, we look at the additional benefits. That is transparency in terms of public verifiability, because anyone can verify the correct system. Now this is depending on the access, whether it is a public or a private blockchain. Then accountability, there is traceability of records, instant replication, integrity of data, business regulated access, there is anonymization, because you need not write down who created the data. And there is also access to new markets because you are able to speed up transaction processing, you are able to have no risks, no frauds, and hence you can have an access to newer market in the world. So the businesses can improve. Then there are cost benefits in terms of no intermediary, because peer-to-peer like brokerage systems can be avoided. There is a system replication overhead, but unnecessary replication is avoided. Only the required data is shared across the peers. Now in terms of cost, the major advantage is also ROI, that is return on investment, because we are minimizing the manual processes, reconciliation and administration process. So a lot of time is saved and costs are saved, because that many people will also not be required. Now, just one point to understand here, that we have categorized the direct benefits, additional benefits and cost benefits, but depending on the type of the organization or the business which is going to adopt or deploy a blockchain, some of the direct benefits could become additional and some of the additional could become direct, and even the cost, some of the benefits could change. But overall, if we look at majority of the businesses and organizations, if they are going to deploy the blockchain, this is the major category of benefits you can look at. Now, what are the challenges in terms of implementing a blockchain or adopting a blockchain? Now, typically speaking, whenever the CIOs of the organizations want to look at moving away from a legacy system to a blockchain system, they will need to assess the commercial potential of the blockchain use case and is it really worth it. So the questions which they could ask before they can actually deploy or adopt would be something like, how does this use case enable the organization's strategic objective over the next 5 to 10 years? Now, no CIO is going to look at only the current benefit. So, is it going to benefit me over the next 10 years or 5 years? What does my implementation roadmap look like? What are the changes will I have to make in the system? How can I design the roadmap to take the use case into full production and maximize the ROI? What specialized skill sets will be required to make this commercial? What sort of talent will be required? Who will have a technical insight and who will help me in taking this initiative further? And do we have the right infrastructure? Do we have a right set of people who can test the POC and then find out whether it will deliver the value? So after looking at some of these questions, the CIOs can decide and understand the challenges in adoption and implementation of blockchain to an organization. So a few list of challenges on the adoption side are technical immaturity, lack of clarity in terminology. Sometimes the people who are involved, since this is an evolving technology, there may be some lack of clarity in terms of the terminology. Sometimes there may be a risk in early adoption because you may have to make major changes in the existing practice. Also, there is a lack of evidence of business gain because it is evolving. Everybody has not yet used it. So, there is lack of evidence of the business gain, economic impact, and even the cost benefit analysis. There is also some uncertainty in the regulations because there are no standard regulations available for blockchain. Now, due to multiple non-operable implementations, there will be some sort of discrepancies as to really, do I really need a blockchain and will it really benefit me? Security and privacy of data, if it is shared among organizations, it could be difficult. So there has to be care taken as to what is the data and how that will be protected. To ensure integrity of data, strong encryption may be required depending on the type of the data. Since the blockchain is going to involve energy intensive computation, that the infrastructure should be available to support the computations. Sometimes there is also lack of clarity in terms of governance, smart contracts, and implementation in distributed ledger technology of the blockchain. There may be some other technical hurdles in adoption like scalability, data privacy, and technical standardization. So, you need to have a blockchain consultant, a team of people who know blockchain, who understand blockchain, so they can decide to identify the use case properly. Then they can decide whether to really implement or not and how to go ahead with adoption of blockchain. So after a brief idea about the adoption challenges, we go to the next point, that is the implementation challenges. So how does one implement a blockchain? So for example, the existing process may have to be restructured. There may be impact on the metrics which are involved in the systems. Security framework, we need to identify the external threats and ensure that they are mitigated. There may be some engagement norms in terms of ownership, administration. What is common among the users? How do we manage them? Where do we store the data? What about interoperability, interaction between existing applications to the blockchain? What about the additional functionality which is needed for interoperability? What about the regulation and compliance? In terms of the impact of the current regulations on blockchain, what will happen to the impact on the blockchain standards and frameworks for auditable blockchain applications? What about scalability and costing? Cost per blockchain versus scalability and achieving scalability using blockchain. So there are many challenges, challenges in terms of adoption, implementation, but it's a way forward. It's a step-by-step process with some baby steps to see how we can take the benefit of blockchain and improve the business ROI. The third important point in terms of benefits challenges, we look at the evolving blockchain standards. Evolving technology means there's a need to have established consensus on consistent terminology. Some terminology is still not consistent. There should be interoperability between multiple implementations, which is not there. There are so many platforms available for developing a blockchain, but how do you connect them together? That is still missing. There's a need to address security, privacy, and even data governance. There's a need for fostering trust and managing end user identity. Still, some research needs to be carried out in that area. And there's a need to facilitate implementation of provenance tracking, the origin to where it is today. So, for example, you take a diamond, where it had evolved and where it is today. So, from the mine to the jewelry, and the jewelry with the buyer of the jewelry. That's what we talk about in terms of provenance tracking. So, if I just move back, in this lecture 11, I initially explained the benefits of blockchain in terms of direct, additional, and the cost benefits. Then we looked at the adoption challenges and the implementation challenges. Then I spoke about the evolving blockchain standards. And after lecture 11, in lecture 12, we will look, with lecture 11, we have completed section 3, the advanced concepts of blockchain, consensus mechanisms, smart contracts, components of blockchain project ecosystem, security, benefits, challenges, and standards. After section 3, in section 4, I will explain blockchain implementation in 12, 13, and 14.